What the hell happened here? Dad? Dad, you in here? What a mess. Dad, it's Jackson. Dad? What? Dad? Oh. Oh, shit. Shit. Oh, I gotta find something heavy. Now, we gotta get this power back on. There's gotta be a generator somewhere. Come on. Dead. Of course it's dead. Nothing. Check. This is Jackson Crow. Come on, you know who I am. There you are. Might as well get comfortable now. Oh, man. It was not supposed to go down like this. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. I didn't even know that by him going down there that it would cause this discrepancy and then I would come back out. If you haven't put it together by now, my name's Jackson Crow. I'm Jonah's son. Yeah, that Jonah. The same guy you've been listening to. Same guy who's been sharing all these stories with you over this microphone. He's not in this room anymore. He's down in Studio B. At least I think he is. And before you ask me what Studio B is, I don't even know if I can explain it yet. But I know Dad went in there. And then something else came out. Me. All this probably sounds incredibly strange to you. This place tends to take things from you. It tends to take little pieces until one day you can't even remember what the empty space used to hold. And my Dad's been in there long enough that there's just not much left for it to take. Except her. My mom, Mary Ann. Just don't. Some of you who've been listening, you already know that name. You already know who she is. I bet some of you probably already think you know what happened to her. But let me tell you, you don't. Not all of it. My dad killed my mother. That's the truth. It's the God's honest truth. But it ain't the whole truth. He didn't do it because he hated her. He did it because he loved her, as crazy as that sounds. Because he thought he was saving her. And whatever lives inside this place, whatever built these roads and towers and rooms that don't seem to belong anywhere else, it knows exactly what that kind of love can make a man do. Because he loved her more than anything else in the world. And in his pursuit of trying to save her, he made some kind of deal with this station. And it's got him on this constant loop of all things that I can't seem to figure out how to get him out of. So yeah, that's why my father's here. Or at least that's part of it. And if I'm right, Studio B is where the rest of the answer has been waiting. So I guess we're just going to have to keep the lights on long enough to find out. Because as you know, these generators don't really run on gasoline. Not anymore. They tend to run on you. Your voices, your memories, your fear, your stories. My dad, he's smart enough to figure that much out long ago. A good story strengthens the signal, keeps the dark outside. On most nights, anyway. And... Jesus! All right. Point taken. So we're going to do what my father taught you to do. We're going to tell stories. And lucky for us, somebody already left one waiting. Now, I don't know about you, but most stories that I've ever come across, they start with somebody going somewhere they probably shouldn't have. An abandoned house, an old stretch of the woods, a road with a gate on it. Usually there's a warning somewhere along the way, you know? Some kind of sign that somebody ignores. A local lady who tells them to turn around. Something like that. But tonight's story isn't really one of those. It's about two guys. Sid and Pat. And they weren't really looking for anything. They were working. Two working men. Communications technicians out of Jackson, Mississippi of all places. Headed north on a service call. They'd worked together for years, long enough to know each other's habits even. Have you ever known somebody like that, where you even pick up on the words they say, the sentences before they even get to complete them? Yeah. And that kind of closeness matters, you know, more than either of them knew at the time. They were running late that evening when a storm pushed them off the highway and onto the backroads of Yazoo County. The rain got worse. The roads started flooding, and their phones lost service. And then, out in the middle of nowhere, they saw a hotel. The Magnolia Motor Hotel. Vacancy sign glowing. Lights in the windows. A warm lobby. A room available for the night. Exactly what two men caught in a Mississippi storm would have been hoping to find out. But there's just one problem. As far as Sid has been able to determine, that Magnolia Motor Hotel shouldn't even exist. It doesn't exist. And let me tell you, after you hear what happened on the third floor, I think you'll understand why there's one piece of advice that Sid would probably give anybody who ever sees that vacancy sign glowing through the rain. Don't stop to figure out how it got there. Don't pull into the parking lot. Whatever you do, don't check in. This is broadcast number 14. The Magnolia Motor Hotel. And we'll see you on the other side of the static. Most of this you could check on if you really wanted to. The company was real. Delta Line Communications, right outside of Jackson. We did radio work, repeaters, base stations, antenna runs, intercom systems for warehouses and grain operations, emergency comms for a couple of volunteer fire departments that couldn't afford anything bigger. The trucks had our name on the door in green vinyl that started peeling off the second summer. There were 7 of us for a while, then 5, and then 4. I still have a shirt with my name stitched on the pocket. A souvenir, if you will, from my first year when we still had the budget to get things like that. The service call was real too. Second week out of April. A farming outfit up in Washington County lost their repeater in a line of storms that came through the Delta and knocked out about half of the county's power. I have the work order. I have the mileage log. I have a fuel receipt from a Shell station in Canton with the time printed right on it, 6:41 in the evening. I've looked at that receipt a few times, and I really probably should have. Pat remembers all of it the same way I do. That matters, you know? We've compared it more than once over the years, usually late at night, usually after we've both had a long day, and we've never had to correct each other. It was the same order of events, same details, same things neither one of us wanted to talk about for very long. But the problem is the hotel. Because there is no Magnolia Motor Hotel in Yazoo County. There isn't one in Humphreys County or Holmes County either. I've been through the state property rolls. I've been through old highway maps, the AAA guides, the little tourist directories they used to print for people driving down to the coast. I called the county tax office twice, and a very patient woman there searched under 3 different spellings for me. I've been through newspaper archives on microfilm at the library in Jackson even. It's crazy. I even know how to use microfilm now, which is not a skill I ever expected to pick up. There was something in that general area a long time ago. I'll get to that part at the end, because I guess it doesn't really help if I do it now. Probably just makes things worse. But I want you to know that I'm not a superstitious guy. My whole job is finding the boring reason of things. When a radio goes quiet, it's almost never mysterious, you know? It's a bad ground, or water in a connector, or somebody's nephew mounted an antenna 2 feet from a light ballast. You check things in order, and eventually the answer is sitting there being obvious. I checked everything on this, in order too, but I ran out of order to check. So now I'm just going to tell it how it was. Maybe somebody listening knows something that I don't. Maybe somebody's been down that road, and if you have, let me tell you, I'd love to hear about it. I also hope that you haven't. Anyway, it started with a job. We were supposed to leave Jackson at noon. We left at 4, because Ronnie put a second call on us that morning and swore it was a 20-minute fix. Ronnie was the owner, which meant he did the estimating, and Ronnie's estimates were more of a mood than a measurement. A poultry operation outside Canton had lost the intercom between the office and 2 of the houses, and Ronnie told them we'd swing by since we were headed north anyway. Canton is not on the way to Greenville. It's not off the way either, but it definitely isn't on it. Pat found out about the second call while we were loading the truck, and he took it about how you'd expect. 20 minutes, he said. He said 20 minutes. He did. You know what happens in 20 minutes? Nothing. Nothing in the history of this company has ever been 20 minutes. He was carrying the big Pelican case with the analyzer in it, so I got the shop door for him without either of us saying anything about it. That's just kind of how it went. He carried things, I opened things. We'd been doing it since before I had a key to the building. Pat is 6'7". I'm 5'4". 5'3" if I'm being honest about the boots. We've worked together going on 9 years, and that arrangement has never once been up for discussion. The Canton job took about 3 hours. It wasn't the intercom. It was a run of cable somebody had stapled along the top of a wall in 1994, and a piece of it, I guess, had been chewed on by something, probably a rat. I got up on a ladder with a tone generator and traced it, and Pat pulled the new run because he could reach the ceiling track standing flat-footed, while I would have needed an 8-footer in 2 trips probably. The office manager watched us the entire time and asked Pat if he played ball in college. They always ask him that. "No, ma'am," Pat said. "Do you play miniature golf?" She laughed. Everybody laughs. He's been doing that bit since I met him. We got back on the road around 6 o'clock, stopped at the Shell in Canton for gas, and Pat came out with an armload. 2 bags of chips, a sleeve of powdered donuts, a Mountain Dew, a Snickers, and a package of those little orange peanut butter cracker things. "You call that dinner?" "That's provisions." "Yeah, that's more like a diabetic coma." "Listen, Sid, I gave up drinking," he said. "Nobody said anything about powdered donuts." He said it the way he just says it, you know? Nothing heavy, nothing emotional. 2 years and 4 months at that point, and he'd been sponsoring, I think, 3 guys. He'd get calls at odd hours and step out of the truck and stand in the parking lot for 20 minutes with his hand on the back of his neck. And then he'd get back in and complain about the radio, and we'd go on with the day. I never asked. He'd have told me, I think. That's exactly why I never had to. There was a stretch before all that where he was hard to be around. I drove him to a few meetings early on, back when he wasn't 100% sure that he'd actually go if it was his own two hands on the wheel. But he did the work. I just drove. We've never talked about it once, and I don't expect we ever will. Anyway, the coffee. I got mine black. He got his with about 4 creamers, which he will deny, and he took my jacket off the seat and put it behind his back like a lumbar pillow, which he does every single trip. North of Canton, the sky started turning that color it gets in the Delta in April, sort of green under the gray, and the wind started pushing the truck around a little. We're going to get stranded, Pat said. We're not going to get stranded. I'm telling you, something's going to happen. We'll bust a belt out here and sit in the dark, and Ronnie will dock us for the tow. Can't dock you for the tow. Oh, he'll find a way. That man's creative. He got quiet for a second. You know what I made last year? After taxes, I mean? For hauling 400 pounds of gear up a tower in July? I know what you made. You tell me every month. Then you know it's criminal. We had this exact argument probably 400 times. It never resolved. I don't think either of us wanted it to. The rain hit hard around Yazoo County, not building slowly, but just all at once. The kind where it's pointless to have your wipers on high, but you do anyway. I turned the radio down out of habit, which Pat says is the dumbest thing I do, turning down sound so I can see better, but I still do it. The 49 West had a closure, wreck or high water, we never found out which. The sheriff's deputy in a poncho waving a light, cars turning around in a line. Pat said that we should just wait and sit it out. I said we'd be sitting all night, so he said fine, and pulled off onto a county road going west, and the GPS took about 90 seconds to decide if it had a better idea and sent us north again on something with no name on the sign, just a number. Then it rerouted a second time. Then the little blue line on my phone got that gray look it gets when it's guessing. None of this was particularly strange yet. I've been lost in Mississippi plenty. The roads out there run along field lines and old property borders, and they'll bend 45 degrees for no reason a driver could ever see. Cell coverage falls off past the tree line. That's all pretty normal. What was less normal was the amount of time it took to see another vehicle. I remember noting it mentally, the way you note things without doing anything about them. 15 minutes, and then 25. Woods on one side, a low flooded field on the other, water standing up over the shoulder in places. Pat had slowed to about 30 and was leaning forward over the wheel with his knees practically at his chest, because that truck was not built for him, and I guess no truck ever has been except his Toyota, which he constantly talks about. Sid, I know. I'm just saying, if you've got service, this would be the time. I held my phone up. Nothing. I checked the truck radio out of pure habit, keyed the mic on the company channel, and got exactly what I expected to get, which was my own voice, going nowhere. I did the mental math on fuel and how far back the last gas station was, and I was still doing it when the lightning went off. It lit up everything for about a second and a half. The field, tree line, road, and a sign up to the right, maybe 200 yards ahead. Tall on 2 steel posts, with a shape at the top I couldn't make out and letters underneath. Magnolia Motor Hotel. And under that, in a smaller box, vacancy. Pat said, "Well, thank the Lord." "Yeah, but we passed that already." "What?" "That sign. I didn't see it." Because it's raining sideways." No. I mean, I've been watching the road. I've been watching for a mailbox, a driveway, anything for 20 minutes. And you don't miss a sign that size." "Sid, I've got a headache. My back's shot. We're not making Greenville tonight, and there's a bed." "I'm just saying, man, it's odd. Everything's odd. You want odd? Look at my pay stub." I was going to say something, maybe even argue. I had a version of it half-formed, something about pushing on another 20 miles to see if we hit a town. Then the water came up over the road ahead of us, sheeting across the field side, and the truck felt it, and Pat let off and said a word I won't repeat here, and neither of us said anything about pushing on anymore. He turned in at the driveway, gravel sunk in a little, and a row of magnolias along one side that must have been planted a long, long time ago, because they were all about the same size. The first thing I noticed was that it was too big. I'd been picturing a strip of 8 or 10 rooms with the doors facing the parking lot, which is what you get out of those roads if you get anything. But this was 3 stories, long, flat roof, an overhang out front held up by 2 metal posts, and a wing running back at an angle behind it. Painted white at some point, green trim. There was a neon sign on the front wall, the script kind, and about half of it was lit and the other half was doing that stutter that means a bad transformer or a leaking tube. The lot was mostly empty. 2 cars sat down at the far end near the wing, and even in the rain I could tell they were old. I mean, like, really old. Big, heavy chrome bumpers type of old. And I remember thinking somebody around here probably restores cars, and then I stopped thinking about it because the rain was coming down hard enough that we sat in the truck for a second, working up to it. 12 rooms lit, Pat said. He'd been counting windows. So there's people here. There's lights on. That's different. He pulled his hood up. You ready? We made a run for the overhang, and I got soaked anyway because that's what happens when your legs are the length of mine and his are the length of his. He was under the awning, shaking off before I was halfway across. Inside, the lobby was warm, and it smelled like old carpet and cigarettes. Not smoke exactly, the smell that gets down into a building over years, so it's just part of the walls. It reminded me of like an old casino that you go into. Smoking may have been banned 50 years ago, but it still reeks of the stuff. The paneling was real wood, dark, with a bead down every 4 inches. Carpet was that heavy commercial pattern in green and gold, worn through to the backing along the path from the door to the desk. There were 2 brass luggage carts with green canvas sides parked against the wall. A cigarette machine, the kind with the pull knobs even, and I looked at the prices on the little paper strips because I thought they'd be funny, and they were. 60 cents. There was a vending machine that only had cans and a coffee machine next to it that dispensed into a paper comb. None of this was reproduction. That's the one thing in this whole story I'm actually qualified to say. I've spent my life inside old equipment, and reproduction gets the look and misses everything else usually. But the cigarette machine had a service sticker riveted next to the coin slot, with a phone number on it and an exchange format that they stopped using before I was even born. The coin mech on the vending machine was worn shiny in exactly the places 40 years of thumbs wear one down. There wasn't a TV in the lobby, no computer at the desk, no card reader, no little laminated sign with a Wi-Fi password, which every place usually has now, even places that shouldn't. There was a payphone on the back wall by the restrooms. Steel, chrome dial, cord in a metal sheath. I picked it up because, how could I not? There was a dial tone. Strong one too, clean. I stood there like an idiot with the receiver against my ear. Well, Pat said. It works. Cool. Call somebody. Who? And that stopped us both because neither of us could come up with a single number. I know my mother's number. I've known it since I was 6. But other than that, I had nothing. Pat couldn't even do his own girlfriend's. I can do the shop, he said. It's 9 at night. So Ronnie can sit up and worry about us for once. I hung it up. We laughed about it for a second, the way you do when something's a little off and you'd rather just laugh about it. The front desk had a bell on it. Behind the desk was a wall of little wooden pigeonholes with keys hanging in them, a shelf of stationery, and down on the lower shelf, lined up in a row, a bunch of those miniature liquor bottles, old ones. The labels were faded on the side facing out. Pat was looking at them, not in a particular way, but just looking, the way you look at anything, I guess. I must have glanced over at him because he looked at me and just gave me a laugh. Don't worry. 2 years, 4 months, remember? I wasn't worried. You were looking at me. I was looking at the bottles. Yeah, sure you were. And that was it. He rang the bell. Nobody came at first, so he rang it again, then leaned over the desk and called out, "Hello?" toward the doorway behind it. Nothing. I looked down the hall past the payphone. Rooms, a door marked office. No sound from anywhere. Maybe she's on her rounds, Pat said. Who's she? Whoever. There's a person. There's lights on. Gotta be somebody. Yeah, but you said having the lights on was just different, remember? He put his hands on the desk and leaned on it and looked at the ceiling, which is what he does when he's decided to be patient at somebody. I walked the lobby once. Rain on the glass, that neon out front doing its stutter through the window. I turned back towards the desk to say something to him. Evening. She was standing behind the counter. I didn't hear her come in, neither did Pat, and I know that because he came off that desk like it had gone hot, and he apologized, and she said it was fine. People did that. She looked like she was maybe 70. White hair set the way older women used to set it. Glasses on a chain and a uniform. I mean an actual uniform. Dark green with a collar and a little name tag I never did read. Clean, pressed, and worn the way you wear something you've worn for a while. Everything about her was kind of ordinary. She was pleasant. She asked about the road. She said the water gets over it at the bend and they've been telling the county about it for years. Pat asked if they had 2 rooms. We have 1, she said. 1. 3rd floor, 317. She was already reaching for the pigeonholes without looking. It has 2 beds. Pat asked what it cost and she told him, and it was cheap enough that I remember thinking she'd misheard the question. Then she said cash only, and I started to say something about that, and Pat was already counting bills out of his wallet, because Pat carries cash and gives me grief about not carrying cash roughly every other week. Told you, he said, mostly to me. She wrote something in a book on the counter, turned it and slid it towards us, and I don't remember signing it or anything. I'm not saying I didn't. I just have no memory of picking up a pen. I usually have a pretty good memory for that kind of thing. Then she handed over the key. It was brass, heavy, on a green plastic diamond tag with the number stamped in gold and worn down at the edges. It was warm, not hot, just warmer than the room, like it had been in somebody's pocket. Elevators around the corner, she said. Stairs are at the far end, but be warned, the light's out on 2. The elevator was around the corner from the desk, down a short hall with a mirror on one side. It was old, antique old, brass doors with a pattern stamped into them, and above the doors one of those half-circle indicators with an arrow that sweeps across the numbers. The arrow was pointing at 1 when we got there. There was a call button, one of those round white ones that lights up from the inside, and when I pushed it, the light came on with that yellowish color you don't see anymore. I looked at all of it, because I can't help it. It was a traction elevator, not hydraulic. You can hear the difference. Hydraulic ones groan and settle a little. Traction ones have machinery up top, and everything sounds like it's happening above your head. The car came down and the doors open, and Pat looked at it and said, "You gotta be kidding." It was small. Older buildings, the elevators were built for 4 people who were all shorter than Pat. He had to duck to clear the header on the way in. And once he was inside, he had maybe an inch of air above his head, and he stood there with his neck tipped forward a little the way he does everywhere. "I want it on record," he said, "that this thing was designed to insult me." You seem to fit just fine." "I'm folded up. There's a difference, man." He looked down at me. "But this is your dream. This is a building built for you." Finally. Inside was wood paneling, same as the lobby, and a panel of buttons and a brass plate. 1, 2, 3. And a lobby that was the same as the first floor, as far as I could tell. He pressed 3 with his thumb and had to reach down to do it, which he pointed out to me. The doors closed, motors picked up somewhere above us, and the car started climbing, slowly, and the whole thing swayed a little bit, which all of those old things do. That's not a problem, it's just the cable, you know? And then something scraped over our heads. It was very distinctive. A scrape, dragged across the top of the car from one side towards the other, and it took about a second and a half, and then it stopped. Then it did it again, shorter, and then a third one that ended right above where Pat was standing. He tipped his head back and looked at the ceiling of the car. He didn't say anything. My first thought was completely boring and reasonable. On attraction setup, you've got the machine room up top, and you've got the counterweight running in on its own rails right alongside the car. And if there's a guide shoe worn out or a rail that's out of plumb, you get exactly that kind of dragging around. I've heard it in a parking garage in Jackson before. It means somebody needs to spend some extra money. I said something like that to Pat. Guide shoe, counterweight, probably needs lubrication. Sure, he said. The scraping didn't come back. We were between floors, I think, when I heard the other thing. Voices. Faint. More than one. And they were behind the wall of the car, or maybe above it, or somewhere that isn't a place that people would be. It sounded the way it sounds when you're in a motel room and the family next door is talking. You get the rhythm of it and none of the words, you know? Rise and fall. Somebody says a longer thing, somebody says a short thing back. I had a reasonable answer for that too. Old buildings carry sound in the shafts. A shaft is basically a hollow column running through the whole structure, and it'll pick up a conversation from 2 floors down and deliver it to you like it's on the other side of a curtain. That's real. It happens sometimes. Then one of them got clearer for about a second, right at my ear level on the left side. I've told this part in different ways over the years, and what I've kind of settled on is it sounded like, "Don't get off." Could have been anything. It could have been a name. It could have been 2 words that only lined up that way because I was already listening too hard. I've gone back and forth on it, and I guess I'm never going to really know. I looked at Pat to see if he caught it. He was still looking up at the ceiling. "You hear that?" I said. "Hear what?" And I didn't answer, because the arrow above the door swept over to 3 and the car settled and the doors started opening. They opened onto a landing about the size of a bathroom. There was a little table against the wall with a lamp on it and a chair nobody had ever sat in by the looks of it. Straight ahead was wallpaper, gold and cream, a pattern with a diamond shape repeating in it. And to the left there was a hallway, and to the right of that there was a hallway. That's it. That was the whole landing. And both halls looked the exact same. Doors on both sides, evenly spaced. A lamp on the wall between every second pair of doors, and the same carpet running out until it got too dim to see. There was no sign on the wall telling you rooms 301 through 310 are that way, and 311 through 320 are that way. Every hotel has a sign, but this one didn't. Pat stepped out and went left a little ways and came back. There's no numbers." "You mean on the doors?" "On anything." I went and checked myself, obviously, because that's a stupid thing to take somebody's word on. But he was right. The doors had a knob, a keyhole, and a little metal plate above the keyhole where a number should have been screwed on. And on the 2 that I looked at closely, you could see the screw holes. Just the holes. Like the plates had been taken off for some reason. I did what I always do, which is start measuring things. From the lot, the front of the building ran maybe 200 feet, and there was that wing going back at an angle. Call it 40 rooms on a floor if they packed them, maybe. So from the elevator, one direction should have been 15 or 20 doors before you hit an end wall. But I could not see an end wall in either direction. I wasn't exactly alarmed yet. The lighting was bad, and those lamps were doing about 40 watts apiece. You get a long hallway like that with dim lighting, and it does go gray on you before it ends. "Okay," Pat said. "You go that way, I'll go this way. First one to find 317 wins." We're not splitting up." "I don't think we should split up, man." "Sid, it's a hallway." People always get to this part and want to know why 2 grown men separated in a strange building. But it didn't really feel like a strange building at that point. It felt like a cheap hotel with the numbers taken off the doors for some stupid reason, on a night when we were both very tired and wet and had been up since 5 o'clock in the morning. Splitting up in a hallway is not really a decision at that point, it's just what you do when you're looking for your room, you know? So we split up. Pat went left, I went right. We agreed to holler every so often, even though the agreement was mostly just a joke. I started down my side, trying doors. Locked, locked, locked. I'd try a knob and then look at the plate above it, and then go on to the next one. The carpet was thick, so thick that it soaked up sound, and the wallpaper pattern kept repeating. So after a while, I made myself start counting doors, because otherwise I would just lose track. At 12, I called out, "Pat? Yeah." From behind me, back towards the landing. Good distance, normal. I kept going, 14, 15, 16. The lamps kept coming, 19, 20, 22. 22 doors is farther than that building went. And I stopped and I turned around and looked back the way I'd come, and I couldn't see the landing anymore. Just an empty hallway and lamps going back until it went gray. And I thought I've misjudged the outside. It was dark and it was raining, and I saw the place for maybe 6 seconds and threw a windshield at that. Buildings are bigger than you think. That wing went back at an angle, and I have no idea how far. Then I took another step, and my foot made a wet sound. Not a squelch, but a splash. A small one, like stepping in a puddle in a parking lot, an inch deep at most. And I stopped and took another step. Splash. I crouched down and put my whole hand flat on the carpet. Dry. That dry that old carpet gets, a little stiff from years of vacuuming. I pressed on it and rubbed my palm across it, and there was nothing on my hand. I stood up and took 3 more steps, and every one of them came back wet. My boots were damp. That part was true. We'd run through a parking lot, but a damp boot on a dry floor does not sound like water. It sounds like a damp boot. And I've been in enough plant basements and pump houses to know exactly what walking through standing water sounds like. "Pat." Nothing. "Pat." The hall took my voice and did nothing with it. No echo, no answer. I stood there with my hand up on my ear, which is a thing I apparently do, and I waited about 10 seconds. And then finally, "Sid?" I froze, and it wasn't because I heard his voice. It was because of where it came from. It was ahead of me, somewhere out in the part of the hallway that I haven't even walked yet. There's a beat there where your brain tries to fix it for you. Mine went straight to work. Maybe he looped around. There's a connecting hall, maybe, or a stairwell, or the 2 hallways meet at the back of the wing, and he came around the other side. And he's been walking as long as I have. That could be possible. Not just possible, but likely even. Buildings have loops in them. "Pat? Yeah, I'm up here." His voice. His exact same voice. The one I've heard through a truck window and over a radio and across a warehouse floor for 9 years. "I found it." And I started walking towards it. I've told this part in rooms where people act like they would have known better. I took 4 or 5 steps towards it like anybody would. And then it said, "Come closer." I stopped. There's nothing wrong with those 2 words, but Pat doesn't say that. Pat says, "Hey, get over here," or "Hey, come look at this." Or he just says my name twice and expects me to walk. In 9 years, I have never once heard him say, "Come closer." And something about the way it landed sounded like a person saying words they'd learned rather than words they actually meant. It was also the pitch, slightly high. Pat's voice sits low enough that you feel it a little bit in a small room. This was his voice with about 5% of something else in it. And if you've played me a recording, I'd have said, "Yeah, that's Pat. Maybe he's got a cold or something." I got my phone out. No bars, not one. And no SOS either, just the little X. I remember checking it twice, like the second check would change something. Then I turned on the flashlight and pointed it down the hallway. The beam went maybe 50, 60 feet before it gave up, and at the far end of what it could reach, there was somebody standing in the middle of the hall. It was Pat. I mean, the size of it was Pat. You can't fake that. He's a landmark. He takes up a doorway. Same green work jacket, same jeans, same boots. The brown ones with the toe-scuffed white, where he usually kicks equipment cases into place. And I could see that scuff from where I was standing. I raised the light slowly, very slowly, up over the boots and the knees, up the jacket, and I could see his hands hanging down at his sides. That's when I noticed the first thing. His hands were open and still. Pat's hands are never still. He picks at his thumbnail, he works his knuckles. He'd been doing it in the truck for 4 hours earlier. I kept the beam going up. Chest, collar, the bottom of his chin. And right there, with maybe 3 inches of light left to go, something in me stopped my arm. I can't really explain that part any better. It wasn't a thought. It was more like the feeling you get when you're about to step off a curb and a car's coming. That whole body flinch that happens before you even know why. Every bit of me said, do not push that light onto his face. Not, don't look at his face. Don't show it. I brought the beam down and held it on his chest.
Sid?
It said.
Come here.
I stood there and I looked at the shape of him, and I finally understood what was wrong. And it took a second to come up out of me because it's not the kind of thing you know that you know. He was standing up straight. Those halls had a low ceiling. Old building, drop ceiling probably, 8 foot at most. And there was a sprinkler head and a lamp fixture in the general vicinity. Pat is 6'7". In a room like that, he goes into what I can only call his indoor posture. Head forward, shoulders rolled a little, chin down. It's not a slouch exactly. It's more like his whole body has spent 30 years apologizing to door frames. He does it a lot in the shop. He does it in a customer's office. He does it in elevators, and I'd watched him do it 15 minutes before. But this thing, it stood there, perfectly straight, like the ceiling wasn't a thing it was even thinking about, with maybe an inch of clearance over its head and no awareness of it at all. It had the height right. It had the height exactly right. It just didn't know what the height does to a man. I took a step back.
Where are you going?
I took another one, and I kept the light on its chest, and I did not turn around because I did not want to lose sight of it. And I got maybe 4 steps like that. And then it moved. I didn't see it move exactly. I saw the light on its chest get closer without any of the up and down that walking puts into a person. So I ran. I'm not a runner. I'm 5'3" with short legs and a bad left knee from a ladder that got away from me in 2016. And the fastest that I move on a normal day is when somebody drops a connector down a grate. But I ran anyway. I ran the way you do when the running is happening to you. And behind me, I heard it. It was coming through the water. Splash, splash, splash. The sound of somebody walking through an inch of standing water in a flooded basement. And every one of those steps was landing on the same dry carpet mine were. I could hear my own feet under it, thudding, and I could hear the other sound over the top. Mine were fast. The other ones weren't. They stayed the same distance behind me anyways.
Sid.
Confused at first. Genuinely confused. Like a guy who just watched his buddy bolt for no reason.
Sid, what are you doing?
I kept going. My phone light was swinging all over the walls because I was running with my arm down.
Sid, hold on.
Closer.
Hey, it's me.
Then it got scared. That's the part I don't like talking about because Pat's scared is a very specific thing, and I've only heard it a few times. Once on the phone at 2 a.m, about 3 years before all this. And from this thing. The pitch, the way his voice comes apart a little at the top.
Sid, don't leave me up here. Don't do that to me, Sid.
I kept running. Then it started reaching for things.
Ronnie's gonna kill us if we don't get back to Greenville by 7.
That's true. That's the kind of thing Pat says.
Sid, 20 minutes. He said 20 minutes.
That one landed. That was ours from that afternoon, in the shop parking lot with a Pelican case in his hands.
You bought the coffee. Black. No sugar. Like a psychopath. You drove me. You remember that? You drove me and you never said one word about it.
I didn't slow down for any of it. I'd love to say that none of it got through. All of it got through. And then, it got angry. The voice dropped and it lost the friendliness completely. And it said my name flat twice.
Sid! Sid!
And then it said a thing about my mother that I'm not going to repeat here, and that helped, honestly. That's when the last of it fell off for me. Pat has met my mother probably 40 times. He calls her ma'am and eats whatever she puts in front of him and lets her tell him he's too thin, which is an insane thing to say. And he has never in 9 years said anything close to that about my mother. The hallway kept going. I passed doors and lamps and doors and lamps, and the pattern in the wallpaper just repeated and repeated. I'd been running long enough to be well past the end of that building. I had been down there something like 400 feet by then, and the front of the Magnolia was 200. And there was no bend, no turn, no stairwell, no ice machine, no linen closet, nothing that a real hall that long would have had. Some of the doors were open now. They hadn't been open on the way in. I only really got 3 of them, and I got them out of the corner of my eye while running at top speed. One had a table in it with plates set out, and there were people sitting at it, and none of them moved when my light went across. One was full of water, floor to about knee height, black, and it went back farther into that room than the room could possibly go. And one had a man sitting on the end of his bed with his back to the door, facing the wall, in a jacket and a hat, and I don't know what he was doing, and I'm glad I don't. Then the lights started going out behind me. Not all at once, but in order, back to front, the way a bank of contractors drops when somebody's throwing breakers one at a time down a panel. I could see it happening in my own shadow on the wall ahead of me, the shadow getting longer and then jumping longer again, and I remember thinking clear as anything, that's sequential, that's not a power failure. Which is a really stupid thing to have thought about at that moment, but that's what I've got. My brain kept doing its job the whole time, even when the job was worthless.
Sid!
Right behind me, not 50 feet, maybe 15. And then it tried one more thing, and it nearly got me.
Sid! It ain't me! Something's behind you! Sid! Turn around! Sid! Turn around! Turn around!
And my head started to go. It did. Your neck wants to turn. 9 years of somebody yelling, look out, and you look, and it's just your wiring. And I got about halfway and I stopped myself. And I put my chin down and I looked at the carpet in front of my boots and I ran. And I said out loud, over and over, no, 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 no. Not to it, but to me. Up ahead, the light changed, wider. 2 lamps instead of 1, and a shape that wasn't a door. It was the landing. I hit it going full speed and my boots caught the edge of that thicker carpet, and I came around the corner into the little open space by the elevator, and somebody came out of the other hallway at exactly the same second. Big, coming fast, right at me. I swung, and it wasn't even much of a swing. I had a phone in that hand, but I swung at his midsection because that's what I could reach. He got an arm up and shoved me off and drew back a fist the size of a coffee can, and then both of us stopped, about a foot apart, breathing like we'd run up a tower. He was bent over with his hands on his knees, down at my level more or less, which never happens. Was that you in the hall? No. Was that you? No. We stood there. His face was wet. Not rain. He'd been running long enough to sweat through, and his chest was going. And he was doing a thing with his right hand where he kept opening and closing it, working the knuckles. I looked at that hand for probably 3 full seconds, and then I said, "Where'd you park the truck?" He straightened up, and the ceiling was right there, so his head went forward and his shoulders came in the way they do. "What? Where'd you park it?" "Front, by the post, under the light, because you told me the ground looked soft on the other side." He wiped his mouth. "Why are you even asking me that?" "Because I just want you to keep talking," I said. He talked. I think he understood why I asked. He'd gone left, trying doors, same as me. Locked, locked, locked. He counted 2, or said he did, and he got somewhere past 20 and then figured he'd walk past the end of the building. And then he heard me call his name from up ahead. "You said you found it," he said. "You said, Hey, I got it. It's down here. I didn't. Yeah, I know that now. He'd walked towards it. Got fairly close, 40 feet maybe, and there I was, standing in the middle of the hall in my jacket. And then, I put my light on you. He rubbed his face. And I had a whole thing I was going to say. What were you going to say? That I was finally going to get to point a flashlight down to find your face, for the first time in my life. Oh, go to hell, Pat. That's what I'd figured you'd say. It was a stupid joke. It wasn't even funny, and both of us laughed anyway. The ugly kind of laugh. And it lasted for about 2 full seconds, and then his face changed. He said he started the beam low and then brought it up, and he got to the chest, and he was going to keep going, and then something stopped him. Same as me. He couldn't describe it any better than I could. He said it wasn't a thought, and it wasn't fear exactly. It was more like his arm just declined. I've never had my own body tell me not to like that, he said. Not once. He held the light on its collarbone, and then he saw the thing that made him back up. You were looking straight at me. So? Sid, you don't look straight at me. You can't. He put his hand flat out at about the level of his own sternum, which is where the top of my head lives. When you talk to me, you tip your head back. You've been doing it for 9 years. Every single time, man. You do it so much I don't even see it anymore. And it wasn't doing that. No, it was staring dead ahead at nothing, at a spot about here. He held his hand up in the air where nobody's face was, like it thought that's where I'd be for some reason. It knew what I looked like. It knew what my jacket looks like and what my voice sounds like, and it knew where to stand even. It just didn't know what it feels like to be 5'3" in a hallway with Pat. He got quiet then. He was working his knuckles again. It said something else, he said. What? It said, I'm proud of you, man. I didn't say anything. And I stopped, because that's a thing you've never actually said to me, which is fine. I'm not asking you to. He was looking at the carpet. You just never have. No, I haven't. And then it said, 2 years. There was a wrong little pause after that, and I've thought about that pause a lot. It wasn't the pause of a man collecting himself. It was the pause of a man deciding what to leave out. And what else did it say? I asked. Nothing. Pat. It said some other stuff. He looked up at me, and I have known that man for a long time, and I've never seen his face do what it was doing. And I'm not going to repeat it. Not tonight, not ever, so just stop. He never has. 12 years and change, and I've asked him maybe 3 times total. Always sideways. Always when we were doing something else. Every time he says the same thing, which is that it doesn't matter. And every time I just let it go. Because he's earned that. Whatever it said, it was something Pat has said out loud in a room full of folding chairs and bad coffee. It was his, it wasn't mine, and it wasn't supposed to be in that hallway. He shook it off the way he does, with a big breath and a roll of the shoulders. So how are we going to get out of here? He said. Do you have a plan at all? We'll start with the elevator. Good enough for me. I hit the call button. The white light came on inside it, like it had downstairs. Above the doors, the brass arrow was pointing at 3, meaning the car was right there on our floor, sitting behind those doors about 4 feet from where we stood. Nothing happened. I pressed it again, held it, let it go, listened at the crack for the machine to pick up somewhere overhead, which is the one thing in that whole building I actually understood. There's no motor and no relay and no cable. Somewhere down the left hallway, we heard a door open. That soft double sound old hardware makes, the latch coming back and the door swinging off the frame. And then another one farther down. Then one behind us, in my hallway. And then, a lot of them. They came out into both hallways. Not fast. People stepping out of their rooms because they heard something in the corridor. That kind of speed. A man in a short-sleeved shirt and a thin, dark tie. A woman with her hair set high and a coat over her arm like she was going somewhere. 2 more behind her, one in a leisure suit, an honest-to-God leisure suit, and one in a windbreaker with a logo I recognized from when I was a kid. There's a woman in a business jacket with big shoulders. There's a kid, I think, small, holding on to somebody's leg. And I've decided over the years that I don't need to be sure about the kid. And down towards the far end, past where the lamp still worked, there was even more of them. I couldn't even count them. The hall went back farther than a hallway should go. Their clothes were from everywhere, every era I could think of. 60s, 70s, 80s. A couple that looked like people who'd walked in last week. One of them had a rolling suitcase. Some of them were facing us straight on. Some of them had their hands up over their faces, fingers spread, elbows out. And some, whenever I let my eyes go to them, turned. Not fully away exactly. They rotated so I got the back of the head, and they did it smooth, and they did it every time. And I tested it twice before I made myself stop. I've never worked out which of those was the worst group to be in. I couldn't tell you if any of them were actual people. Maybe the ones covering up their faces were guests who'd learned the same thing we learned about an hour into this. Maybe the covering up was part of the limitation. There's no way to know, and there's no one to ask. Sid. Pat's hand closed on my shoulder. Elevator. I was already hitting it. I hit it 8 or 10 times. The little white light came on and went off and came on. The arrow above the doors still said 3. Then the power sagged. The lamps all dropped together, went orange and came back up about halfway and then just held there. That's what you call voltage sag. You see it when something big pulls on a line. There was nothing in that building big enough to do it, and I knew it while I was thinking it. The ones in front started walking. Sid. That was my own voice, mine, coming out of the man in the tie, 30 feet down to the left. I have heard myself on recordings, and I don't really like it, but this is that. It was exactly that. Pat. The woman with the coat, Pat's voice out of her, the low one you feel in your chest. Then the rest of them started, my name and his name back and forth, from all over both hallways, and our 2 voices and nothing else. No other voices at all. 40 people out there, and every one of them had only the 2 of us to work with. I got my back into the corner by the elevator. Stairs, Pat said. She said stairs. She said the far end, remember? Which far end? I don't know which far end, Sid. She said the far end. The lamps sagged again, and this time, they went all the way out and stayed out. Then something up the ceiling of the landing lit up, dull and red, and it was an exit sign. Battery pack behind it, the little sealed brick that trips over when the mains drop, and I've installed about 200 of those, and I've never been so happy to see one. It was over the left hallway, 20 foot in maybe, Pat's side. Go, I said, and he was already reaching back for my sleeve, and I want to say I ran on my own, but he had a fistful of my jacket for the first few steps. The door under the sign was steel, painted the same cream as the walls, so it almost disappeared, with a small wired glass window at Pat's eye level and nothing at mine. It had a lever handle, no panic bar, which is wrong for a fire stair, and I noticed it and filed it, even though it doesn't matter. I pushed the lever down and shoved, and the door moved about a 1/4 inch and then stopped. I did it again, same 1/4 inch. It wasn't locked. You can feel locked. Lock doesn't give you anything at all, and this gave me that 1/4 inch and then went solid, which means the latch was clearing, but the door was bound in the frame. Old building, wet night, wood swells, and the whole thing racks out of square. Knowing that didn't really help me though, because the fix is force, and I didn't really have any. I got my shoulder into it twice and bounced off it twice. Move. He didn't wait for me to move. He put his hand on my chest and took me out of the way you'd move a chair, and I got my light up on the door for him, which is the other half of the job, and the half that I'm actually pretty good at. He hit it with his shoulder. The frame boomed, and the whole wall took it, and nothing opened. Second time, lower, and I heard the strike plate creak. Behind us, they were coming up the hallway. They weren't running. I could hear my own name and my own voice at about half the distance it had been. Third time, he put everything he had into it and something metal let go, and the door went and Pat went with it, out onto a concrete landing, and he caught himself on the rail. He stood there with his hands on his knees for a minute. Grunt work, he said. Hey, you're finally earning your paycheck. Go to hell. I got the door shut behind us. There was nothing to lock it with. The stairwell was concrete and steel, lit by one battery unit up in the corner with half its lamps dead. Everything down there was gray, and I could see about a floor and a half. We went down pretty fast. Pat took the stairs 3 at a time, and I did what I could, and he kept slowing up for me at the landings without ever once saying anything about it. Between 3 and 2, I heard something down below us, a couple of flights down, moving in the same direction that we were. Not on the stairs. It sounded like it was on the underside of the stairs. And there was something above us, too. I could hear it on the metal. A dragging scrape that I had already heard once that night through the ceiling of an elevator car. At the second floor landing, I made the mistake of looking up through the middle of the stairwell, up that open shaft where the flights wrap around. And there was something on the underside of the flight above us, holding on to it, long, and folded up the way a person is not really built to, with its back to the concrete and its front towards the drop. I got maybe a second of it in the corner of my light. I did not raise the beam. I can't really tell you what it looked like, but I made peace with that a long time ago, and honestly, I made peace with it right there on that landing. Don't look at them, Pat yelled from below me. He was already down the next flight. Sid, don't you look at them. I'm not. Don't. I came down that last flight with my chin tucked and my light pointed at my own boots and my hand on the rail, and I've never been so aware of the top of my own head in my life. The stairwell ended at another steel door. This one had a bar. Pat hit it going full speed and it flew open and banged off the wall, and we came out behind the front desk, into the lobby, into the light. There was nobody at the desk. Everything else was the same. The paneling, the carts, the cigarette machine. The lamps were going bright and then dropping to about half, over and over. Rain was coming down on the awning out front so hard that you could hear individual sheets of it. The stair door had put us out behind the counter, so the register was right there under my hand. It was open. Big ledger book, cloth spine, ruled columns, name, room, arrived, and departed. I should have kept walking. Pat was already coming around the end of the counter, and I stopped and looked down at it, because I am the way I am, and because some part of me still wanted a document of some kind. The pages were full, handwriting from a lot of different people. The dates just kept going back, and I saw a 1974 on the left page and something in the 50s farther down, and a couple that were recent enough to be this decade. And none of that is what really got to me. At the bottom of the right page, in the last filled line, was tonight. My first name, my last name, Pat's first name, Pat's last name, room 317. And it was my handwriting. I've looked at my own writing my whole life on work orders and cable tags, and I know what my S looks like, and it was definitely mine. With a little mark at the top even. A lot of people confuse it for a 5, often. It was mine. It was mine on his line too, both names, the way I filled out a 2-man ticket. Somebody had stamped, checked in purple ink. The departed column was empty. Sid. Yeah. Sid. Sid. Something moved in the doorway behind the desk, the one marked office. I got it in the edge of my vision, low down, lower than a person stands, and it came out of that doorway, and it did not come out the way a person comes through a door. I didn't turn my head. I put my eyes on the front door, and I just went. Pat hit the glass door with both hands, and we were out under the awning and then into it, in the rain, running across that lot, and the truck was where he'd left it, under the light by the post. He was already digging for the keys. I got in and my hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even get my seatbelt latched. The truck started. Of course it did, because it's a 2-year-old truck with a good battery. But you don't know that in the moment, and both of us made a sound when it turned over. Then something hit the back of the truck. It came up through the frame and through the seat, the way it does when somebody backs into you in a parking lot. Pat got it into gear and it happened again, harder, over on my side, back by the tailgate. My side mirror was 8 inches from my face, and all I had to do was just move my eyes. "Don't do it," Pat said. "I'm not." He put his hand up on the passenger side of my headrest and reversed out of there, looking over his shoulder, straight out the back glass, past whatever was there. And I sat with my eyes on the dash and my hands in my lap like a freaking kid. Then he swung it around and we were finally on the road. Neither of us said anything about it for about 6 miles. Then my phone came back, 1 bar and then 3, and it buzzed 4 times in a row with stuff that had been trying to reach me for hours. And the GPS drew a line and told us where we were like it had been there the whole time. We were on a county road northwest of Yazoo City, and it knew exactly how to get to Greenville, and it was 110 minutes, and it was right. We got in around 1:30. Chain hotel off the highway, the kind with the breakfast bar and the lobby that smells like carpet shampoo. Pat paid for a room with 2 beds. The girl at the desk had a computer and a card reader and even gave us a Wi-Fi password on a little card. And I've never been so happy to see a Wi-Fi password in my life. Neither of us slept much. We didn't turn the lamp off, and neither of us mentioned that, then or since. In the morning, it was sunny. We came out to the parking lot with the sun on us and a guy loading golf clubs into an SUV, and everything that happened 7 hours ago starts sounding like something you dreamed. By the time we'd had coffee, I'd caught myself building a version where it was carbon monoxide. And honestly, I would have just kept building it, except that I'd have to explain why we both had the same one. We did the job. That's the thing about work. The repeater out at that farm operation had taken a surge down the coax, and the duplexer was cooked, and the lightning arrestor had done its job right up until it hadn't. It took us till about 2 o'clock. The guy who met us was named Holler, and even gave us a beer out of the cooler in his truck. We were supposed to head home after that. "Don't you think we should go look?" Pat said. "No, definitely not." Sid. "I know." That's how the argument went. It took about 4 minutes and neither of us wanted to win it. We found it easier than we should have. Right road, right bend, right row of magnolias, all the same size. The building was still there. The roof over the back wing had come in. Most of the windows were gone, and the ones that weren't were fogged and cracked. There was a young sweet gum growing up through the concrete where the awning had been, 10 or 12 feet of it, which is not a thing that happens in a season. The neon sign was just a rusted frame with the tubes broken out, and you could just make out where the shape of the letters used to be. There's only one car down at the end of the lot, sitting on 4 flat tires with the rims into the gravel, rusted through the quarter panels, glass gone. "It's the same car," Pat said. "And I know it." We sat in the truck with the engine running. Neither of us reached for a door handle. I don't think either of us even considered it. "That's it," he said. "Yeah. That's it, though. It's the same building." "I know." I did the count out of habit, because that's what I do. 2 rows of windows across the front, and then a 3rd row above them, right up under the roofline. The 3rd row was there. I saw it in daylight, with my own eyes. One window on that top floor still had glass in it. It had a curtain, and the curtain moved. And it didn't move the way a curtain moves in a draft. It went back about 8 inches and stopped, and stayed there. There was somebody standing in the gap. I could see the shape from about the shoulders down. That's as far up as I let myself go. I put my eyes on the dashboard and just said, "Go." And Pat was already going. Neither of us looked in the mirrors until we hit pavement. I did the research over about 2 years off and on, mostly at night when I couldn't sleep anyway. It came to this. There was a motel of some kind out in that general part of the county a long time ago. The name was different, not Magnolia anything. The description didn't match either. It was small, 1 story, 12 units in a row with the doors facing the lot, the way I'd pictured it when we first turned in. It closed sometime in the 70s, and there's a note about a fire. And after that, the record just stops the way records do out in a county with 3 people in the office. So that's not it. Different name, different size, different shape. Even the wrong side of the road as best as I can figure. But I kept pulling on it anyway, and eventually I got hold of an old assessor's card for a parcel out there. Those cards have a little block on them where somebody wrote down the basics. Construction type, square footage, number of stories. 2 stories. 2. I sat with that for a minute, because I stood in a parking lot in the middle of the afternoon, in sunlight, sober and rested, and counted 3 rows of windows. So did Pat. He even counted them out loud. Somebody could tell me the card is wrong. Cards are wrong all the time, you know? I'd take that. I'd rather have that than what I've got. But the other thing is the key. I found it about a week later. My work jacket has a big flat pocket on the right side, and I never use it, and the brass key was down in the bottom of it with the green tag still on it. And I don't remember putting it there. Pat had the key when we went up. That's the only part that I'm actually certain of. I still have it. It's in the drawer of my desk with the spare fuses and a dead multimeter. And I've thought a few times about driving it out there and throwing it in the ditch, and I've never done it. I don't really have a reason for you. That was 12 years ago. We stopped talking about it after the first year or 2. It went where things like that go, which is nowhere. And then you have a kid and you change jobs and it just gets covered up or, honestly, kind of forgotten about. Pat called me about 4 years back, late, around 11 at night. First thing I heard was rain on the windshield and his wipers going.
Sid.
Hey, man. Been a while.
I want you to just listen to me for a second.
No preamble, no complaining, no joke about the hour. And that's how I knew before he said anything else. He told me he'd passed a sign, big one, up on 2 steel posts, lit up in the middle of a downpour on a road with nothing else on it. He said he read it twice going by. Magnolia Motor Hotel, vacancy. And I asked him where he was. He was west of Springfield, Missouri, coming back from his brother's. That's Missouri. Whatever that place is, it isn't sitting on one back road in Yazoo County. Don't stop, man, I said.
I didn't.
Pat, don't stop.
I said I didn't.
We talked for another minute. Not about the hotel. He asked about my mom, and I told him she was fine. He said good. And there was that flat quiet on the line that phones do now. Then I heard it. A scraping sound. And then nothing. Then 2 more closer together. And I know what that sound was, because I had heard it once before, with about 4 feet of steel above my head.
Did you hear that?
Pat said. I had the phone against my ear in my own kitchen with the light on, 400 miles from him. And it wasn't rain, and it wasn't his wipers, and it wasn't coming from his end of the call. It was in the line. Pat, I said. And then the call ended. Well, I suppose there's a lesson in there somewhere about taking your chances with a flooded road. Although I don't think I'd recommend that either. What gets me about Sid's story tonight isn't the hotel itself. It's how close those things got to being right. I mean, they had the voices, they had the clothes. They knew things that they probably shouldn't have known. Whatever was standing in those hallways had enough of Sid and Pat to fool just about anybody else. Just not each other. When you work beside somebody for 9 years, it leaves you with a lot of little things you don't realize you've learned. The way they stand, the way they move their hands, where they look when they're talking to you. Things nobody would ever think to ask if they were trying to prove who they were. Maybe that's worth remembering. If something ever comes walking towards you, wearing the face of somebody you love, don't ask it for a secret. Watch the little things. Apparently, they're harder to steal. As for the Magnolia Motor Hotel, I did some looking of my own after hearing this the first time. I didn't find much. Certainly didn't find a Magnolia Motor Hotel where he says they stayed. But I've learned something during the run-through of this story. Sometimes, not finding something doesn't make me feel any better. And I don't particularly care to go looking for this one. So if you're driving somewhere late one night and the weather starts getting bad, and you find yourself on a road you don't remember turning onto, and you see an old vacancy sign, neon, glowing, lit up through the rain, just keep driving. There are worse things than sleeping in your car. Trust me. Anyway, that's probably enough for me tonight. This has been broadcast 14 of the Midnight Holler. I'm Jackson, and wherever you're listening from, I hope... Hold on. What the hell is that?
Don't know how long we've got tonight. Signal's been acting peculiar since...
No. Wait. Dad?
Hello?
Dad, can you hear me?
Hello?
Come on. Dad, I know that's you. Say something. Jesus Christ. Dad, it's me. It's Jackson. Can you hear me?
Jackson?
Yeah, me. Yeah, remember? Dad, listen to me. Just stay where you are. I've been trying to reach you.
Reach me?
Yes. Yeah, for months. I have no idea where you are. I don't know what this place is doing to you, but for whatever reason, I can hear you now.
Son, I don't know who you're trying to reach, but it isn't me.
What? Dad.
Son, I don't know who you're trying to reach, but it isn't me.
No, your name is Jonah Elias Crow.
I don't
You're my father.
know you from Adam, boy. I don't have a son, and I've only loved one woman. So you got the wrong man.
Marianne. You loved Marianne.
Don't you dare speak her name.
You just said that. You just said you've only loved one woman. That's her. That's my mother.
I may have kids out there, but it ain't you, boy. How do you know that name?
Because I'm your son. Dad, please, just listen to me. You disappeared. I've been looking for you.
What did you say?
I've been following your broadcasts. And I know about the station. I know about the tower. I know you're stuck somewhere. I know what year you think it is.
What year?
I said I know what year you think it is.
Can't hear.
Dad?
Something's wrong with...
Dad?
Jackson.
I'm here. I'm right here.
I don't understand how you... Studio. Don't
Dad?
be... Jackson.
Dad? He heard me. He heard me. He didn't know who I was. My own father didn't even know who I was. But he knew her. He knew Marianne. As soon as I said her name, he knew exactly who. That's him. I know that's him. What did it do to you, Dad? And where the hell are you? Studio B. You know, I've been sitting here telling myself not to even think about it, not to go down there, stay clear away from it. Every strange sound, every time I thought I heard something behind that door, Every time that signal came through and then disappeared again, I've stayed up here. Because there are rules. And because every instinct I've got says there's a reason that door is supposed to stay shut. But I just talked to my father. For the first time, and God, I don't even know how long. He doesn't even know or realize that he has a son anymore. Maybe he's not going to remember me. Maybe whatever has him won't let him. Maybe that wasn't even really him anymore. I have no idea. But if there's even a chance that Studio B is connected to wherever he is, I just can't keep sitting here wondering.
Jackson.
Dad? All right, I'm coming. This is Jackson Crow, Waintradio, Broadcast 14, signing off. I've got to find him.